On a September night in 2002, John Gilbride, a 34-year-old airline pilot, was shot to death as he sat in his car outside his Maple Shade, New Jersey, apartment. The murder, carried out execution style, was shocking enough on its own. But what made the case truly sensational was Gilbride's connection to MOVE, the controversial Philadelphia-based radical group. At the time of his death, Gilbride was embroiled in a bitter custody dispute with his estranged wife, who was a member of MOVE and the widow of its late leader, John Africa. The result was a case steeped in controversy, suspicion, and unanswered questions that linger more than 2 decades later. Born in 1968, John Gilbride grew up in Pennsylvania and went on to become a commercial pilot for US Airways. Colleagues described him as intelligent, professional, and easygoing, with a strong sense of responsibility and a deep love for his young son. His life, however, became entangled with MOVE in the late 1990s after he met and married Ramona Africa, a prominent member of the group and the widow of its founder. Their relationship placed him at the center of one of Philadelphia's most controversial organizations. MOVE, founded in the early 1970s by John Africa, is a communal, anti-establishment group that blends Black liberation ideology, environmentalism, and radical anti-technology beliefs. Over the years, MOVE clashed frequently with authorities, most infamously in 1985 when police dropped an explosive on the group's Philadelphia compound, killing 11 members, including children, and destroying dozens of homes. By the time John Gilbride married into the group, MOVE remained notorious in Philadelphia, both revered by some as victims of state aggression and criticized by others as a cult-like organization. His marriage to Ramona placed Gilbride in a complicated dynamic, as MOVE typically rejected traditional family structures and opposed custody arrangements that placed children outside the group's control. John and Ramona's marriage quickly deteriorated. Their son, Zack, became the center of a bitter custody battle. Gilbride sought joint custody, arguing that his son deserved a stable upbringing beyond MOVE's insular community. MOVE, on the other hand, insisted that Gilbride had no right to the child, portraying him as an outsider and potential threat. In the months leading up to John's death, tensions between him and MOVE escalated. He received threatening phone calls and reported being followed. Despite the hostile atmosphere, a family court judge granted Gilbride supervised visitation rights, with plans to expand to unsupervised visits. His first overnight visitation with his son was scheduled for the weekend following his murder. On the night of September 26, 2002, Gilbride returned to his Maple Shade apartment after work. At around midnight, as he sat in his car in the parking lot, someone approached and fired multiple shots at close range. Gilbride was hit several times and died instantly. The execution-style killing bore all the hallmarks of a targeted attack. Nothing was stolen, and there were no signs of a robbery or struggle. Whoever killed John Gilbride had come specifically to end his life. Investigators immediately suspected that the murder was connected to the custody battle and MOVE. Given the threats Gilbride had received, MOVE members were widely considered persons of interest. Police interviewed Ramona Africa and other members, but no charges were filed. MOVE members publicly denied involvement, claiming that John had been killed by the government as part of a larger conspiracy to discredit them. Despite extensive efforts, the case quickly stalled. There were no eyewitnesses to the shooting, no clear forensic evidence tying anyone to the crime, and no murder weapon recovered. The lack of physical evidence left investigators with little to pursue beyond circumstantial connections. 2 primary theories have emerged in the decades since Gilbride's murder. The first is that MOVE, or individuals associated with the group, orchestrated the killing to prevent Gilbride from gaining custody of his son. The timing of the murder, just days before his scheduled overnight visitation, has fueled this theory. Supporters point to MOVE's history of militant resistance to outsiders and the threats John had reported as evidence of motive. The second theory is that John was killed as part of a broader conspiracy, potentially involving government agencies with a long history of conflict with MOVE. This is the explanation favored by MOVE itself, which argues that law enforcement sought to frame the group or eliminate Gilbride to reignite public hostility toward them. Neither theory has been definitively proven.